Welcome back to the Tudors Dynasty Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Rebecca Larson. One of the greatest historical mysteries out there is the disappearance of the princes in the Tower. Yeah, that's right. We all know the story, right? The sons of Edward IV and Elizabeth Woodville, named Edward and Richard. The two boys vanished from the Tower of London shortly after their father's death. And the mystery lives on today. Are they the bones that were found at the foot of the stairs? Who murdered them? Were they even murdered? Today, I welcome back Lacey Bonar Hull to the show to talk to you a little bit about the princes in the Tower. I hope you enjoy.
The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.
Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's all totally free with no catch. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Hello, my name is Lacey Bonar Hull, and I'm here today to tell Tudors Dynasty listeners about the topic of a new online course I've developed on the greatest mystery to come out of medieval England, the disappearance of the princes in the Tower. Throughout the month of September, a group of interested investigators will study this mystery in a virtual learn-at-your-own-pace course, where we'll consider the medieval evidence, explore modern theories, speak with expert historians, and try our hand at solving this medieval mystery. The case of the princes in the Tower has fascinated people for over 500 years. When King Edward IV died unexpectedly on the 9th of April in 1483, it was assumed that his young son and heir, the 12-year-old Prince Edward, would take over as king. But things wouldn't be that easy. The prince had spent much of his childhood living at Ludlow Castle on the Welsh marches under the guardianship of his maternal uncle, Anthony Woodville. When he learned of his father's death, Prince Edward began making his way toward London for his coronation, accompanied by his uncle, Anthony, and his half-brother, Sir Richard Grey. But the royal party was intercepted by the prince's paternal uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, the dead king's youngest brother, at Stony Stratford. Gloucester unexpectedly had Woodville and Grey arrested and imprisoned, escorting his nephew to London himself, where he was to serve as Lord Protector while he helped Edward prepare for his coronation. When she had learned of the arrest of her brother and son from her first marriage, the Queen, Elizabeth Woodville, fled to sanctuary at Westminster Abbey with her daughters and youngest son, the 9-year-old Prince Richard, Duke of York. Some members of the old nobility, likely including her brother-in-law Gloucester, viewed the Woodville family as power-hungry social climbers, and Elizabeth likely sought out the safety of the abbey to protect herself and her children from any enemies who might emerge against the royal family in the immediate aftermath of her husband's death. Prince Edward and Gloucester entered London together on May 4th, where the prince first took up residence at the Bishop's Palace before being moved to the royal apartments at the Tower of London, where England's new kings traditionally stayed before their coronations. Throughout the month of May, Gloucester, in his powerful role as protector, met with the King's Council to plan the coronation, which was scheduled to take place in late June. He also used this time to ensure his own safety in the face of threats from those who remain loyal to the Queen and her family. The King's Council essentially split into two factions, those who were loyal to the new king's mother's family, the Woodvilles, and those who were loyal to the new king's father's family, Gloucester. Gloucester knew that after the new king was crowned, he might prefer his mother's family, so the protector was working on a limited time to win over both the young Edward V and support from his fellow nobles to protect his own life and livelihood. Without this support, Gloucester's career, and possibly his life, would be at risk. As the date for Edward V's coronation approached, Gloucester and his allies on the King's Council decided that it would be embarrassing for the realm if the new king's younger brother remained in sanctuary at Westminster Abbey while his older brother was being crowned king. They argued that Prince Richard needed to be by his brother's side, pressuring Elizabeth Woodville to give up her younger son, which, after much convincing and many promises of safety, she reluctantly did. Prince Richard joined his brother in the Tower by the 21st of June. By this time, the nobles from around the country were gathering in London for Edward V's coronation, which had been set to take place on June 22nd. But the coronation would never come. Instead, the boy's uncle, Richard, continued to run the government in his role as Lord Protector while the princes remained in the Tower. The young boys were declared illegitimate due to an allegation that their father had been secretly married to another woman before he married their mother, and their uncle Gloucester was asked to take over as the legitimate king of England, which we're told he reluctantly agreed to do. With the boys declared bastards, their uncle Richard was crowned as King Richard III on the 6th of July, 1483. After that fateful summer, the princes were never seen again. What exactly happened to the young boys has sparked intense debate and uncertainty ever since. Some people blame the boys' uncle, Richard, for their deaths, claiming that he had to dispose of the boys to secure his crown. Other popular candidates include Richard's political allies, like Humphrey Stafford, the Duke of Buckingham, or Sir James Tyrrell, acting with or without Richard's approval. Others argued that the boys likely survived as prisoners in the Tower until Richard's successor, Henry VII, took over as the first Tudor king following his victory at Bosworth Field in 1485. Those who subscribe to this line of thinking believe that in order to protect his own shaky claim to the throne and ensure his wife, Elizabeth of York, the prince's sister, was heir to the House of York, Henry VII secretly had the boys killed. Others still argue that the boys survived and assumed other identities, either on the continent or in England, with some suggesting that one of the great pretenders to Henry VII's throne, either Lambert Simnel or Perkin Warbeck, might have actually been Prince Richard, Duke of York, the younger of the princes in the Tower, while the older brother, Prince Edward, might have escaped to the Devon countryside. The uncertainty following the disappearance of the princes isn't just a matter of modern debate. Contemporary sources were also conflicted on what may have happened to the young boys. Most official chronicles written during the Tudor period were understandably biased against Richard III, painting him as a villain to emphasize the good kingship of Henry VII and his successors. Historians are also left to wonder how many sources were destroyed in the aftermath of the Battle of Bosworth, when Richard lost his crown and it suddenly became very dangerous to have been a supporter of the old king. One of the most influential accounts of the prince's fate comes from Sir Thomas More, who himself was 5 years old at the time of their disappearance. When he wrote his History of King Richard III 30 years later, More claimed that one of Richard's loyal servants, Sir James Tyrrell, was responsible for the boys' murder, acting on the wishes of Richard himself. According to More, Tyrrell confessed to the deed, claiming that the boys were first buried at the foot of a staircase in the Tower before being dug up and reinterred somewhere secret. More's account of events seemed to be possibly proven correct in July of 1674, when a wooden box containing 2 small human skeletons was found buried under the staircase leading to the chapel of the White Tower by workers who were remodeling the Tower of London. Experts have cast doubts on whether these bones were actually those of the princes, though, and without DNA testing, we can't know for sure. Over 100 years later, a second set of bones were found when workers were making repairs to St. George's Chapel, Windsor. After accidentally opening the vault of Edward IV and Elizabeth Woodville, the workers found another small vault connected to it that contained 2 coffins, each with the remains of an unidentified child inside. These bones remain unexamined. Royal approval is needed for further investigation into both unidentified sets of bones, but it leaves us to ask, was More partially correct? Were the boys buried at the foot of the staircase of the White Tower and then never reinterred elsewhere? Or were the boys' bones dug up and secretly reinterred in the vault of Edward IV and Elizabeth Woodville, spending eternity next to their parents? Or are none of these bones actually those of the princes, because the princes were never killed in the tower to begin with? Throughout this 4-week online course, we'll reconstruct this tumultuous time period, considering the evidence and theories, both medieval and modern, to try our hand at solving one of history's most enduring mysteries. This course is learned at your own pace, and there are no required assignments or meeting times, so students can join from anywhere in the world and complete the course on their own schedule. You'll get lifetime access to the course content and a chance to speak with expert historians Matt Lewis and Nathan Amen about their thoughts on the fates of the princes. If you want to learn more or register for this course, please visit medievalhistoryacademy.com. Tudors Dynasty listeners can get 20% off registration by using the promo code DYNASTY at checkout. Registration closes September 16.
Have you heard about the Wolf Hall weekend that's coming up in June 2024? No? You must have been living under a rock, because this is all everybody is talking about right now. Next June, there is going to be a fantastic event held in Devon, England at Cadhay House in remembrance and honor of Dame Hilary Mantel and her Wolf Hall trilogy. This event is going to be spectacular. There are going to be wonderful speakers there, like historians and other authors who maybe knew Hilary Mantel. There's going to be a Tudor feast and so much more at this historic Cadhay House in Devon, England. If you're interested in checking out this event, maybe heading over to England with me next June 2024, check out the link in the show notes for more information. Hope to see you there.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Tudors Dynasty Podcast. You can follow and support the Tudors Dynasty Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon @Tudors Dynasty.